Longhorn Steakhouse represents about 25% of the business, but most importantly, it's the company's fastest growing segment.
There's something about steak that it really rings true to the consumer as still being kind of an elevated or a premium consumption or dining experience.
The company started down the path of pursuing new ownership structures and potentially finding a licensed partner.
Picture this. You walk into a steakhouse expecting a sizzling ribeye, but what you get instead tastes like reheated boot leather. Why are so many of America's once famous steakhouses failing to deliver on the one thing they promise, good steak? And which two chains actually still respect your plate and your wallet? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly which spots are worth your money and which ones will just leave you hungry and frustrated. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Imagine paying steakhouse prices only to be served a steak so thin it looks like it was rationed, landing cold on the plate before you even finish your appetizer. Somehow, chains built entirely on steak continue to fail at cooking steak. It's the most basic expectation, yet time and again they miss the mark. Customers pay for satisfaction, but leave pushing around dry, bland beef that no amount of steak sauce can salvage. When you think about it, this isn't just a cooking error. It's a full breakdown of trust between a restaurant and the people it claims to serve. Decades ago, places like Outback, Black Angus, and Bonanza built their reputations on overflowing platters of meat and plate-sized baked potatoes. Families came in for the spectacle of hearty dining, expecting consistency without having to drive downtown for a pricey independent shop house.
And so I think it's fair to say that it has been a key growth driver for the stock and something that investors are always keen to focus on whenever Darden reports their earnings and to see how Longhorn is performing.
So it's a little over 10% of their revenue that we're forecasting in 2023 will come from Brazil.
Darden Restaurants owns a number of chains besides Longhorn. Olive Garden is the most profitable and by far the biggest of its brands, having done over $5 billion in sales in fiscal 2024.
Back then, the booths felt alive with energy and the food matched the vibe. Diners walked out with full stomachs, convinced that chains could deliver reliable steakhouse fare outside the high-end steakhouses of big cities. There was comfort in knowing what you'd get every time. Fast forward to today, and the dining room atmosphere hasn't changed much. But what actually arrives on the plate paints a very different reality. You sit down hoping for juiciness and depth of flavor, and instead the meat fights back like shoe rubber. A fork slips on greasy fat that hasn't been properly trimmed. Cuts often come under-seasoned, with gray edges from being left too long under heat lamps. The moment that bill slides onto the table, frustration hits harder than hunger ever did. You've been sold the dream of a steakhouse, but the flavor is a ghost of what it should be. Take the famous bloomin' onion at Outback. Once a playful, over-the-top starter designed to bring people in, now it's little more than a greasy bomb that coats your palate and stomach before the entrees arrive. Instead of whetting an appetite, it weighs it down. Steak that follows rarely redeems the meal. You expect the shine of anticipation before the main course, but instead, you're already bracing for disappointment. At Texas Roadhouse, you still see country line dancing from the staff, buckets of peanuts on the table, and servers that keep energy high. But walk around the same dining area, and you'll notice the steak problem immediately. At one table, the cut looks scorched black. At another, it's red in the middle, like it skipped the grill entirely. And at yet another, it's cooked halfway to the bone but raw by the fat cap. The same chain, the same night, but wildly different executions. That inconsistency is an outright gamble, and diners don't fork out steakhouse money to be part of a coin toss. Longhorn Steakhouse stretches the issue into research-proven territory. Analysts have pointed to their uneven franchising standards, where quality control shifts from location to location. One Longhorn might serve a steak that's decent, while another 10 miles away reduces the same cut to something barely edible.
Thanks to Brazil's rising middle class and a food culture centered around beef, the brand has amassed a huge following.
Texas Roadhouse and Longhorn Steakhouse parent company Darden Restaurants have significantly outperformed the S&P over the past 5 years.
The company started down the path of pursuing new ownership structures and potentially finding a licensed partner.
The system rests entirely on luck. Who's cooking, who's managing, and whether the franchise enforces standards that day. Restaurant chains may run like businesses, but dining doesn't feel like business when you're the unlucky customer that night. Failures like this resemble a weapon system that you can't rely on. Imagine a machine that fires straight under tightly controlled tests, but jams the moment pressure rises. That's what steak inconsistency feels like. A flare of success here, a catastrophic miss there, and ultimately shattered confidence in the whole operation. A steakhouse no longer promises reliability, only chance. Once customers lose faith in that mission, they rarely return. Despite the varied branding, the core problem repeats itself across smaller chains too.
That could operate the brand and it would allow them to extract some value and monetize the business while maintaining an ownership piece.
Longhorn Steakhouse represents about 25% of the business, but most importantly, it's the company's fastest growing segment.
There's something about steak that it really rings true to the consumer as still being kind of an elevated or a premium consumption or dining experience.
Sizzler drags out its salad bar with vegetables that feel like they've been sitting since noon. Western sizzling relies on reheated plates that taste fatigued before they even hit the table. Golden Corral sticks paper-thin steak cuts under heating elements while customers line up with plastic trays. The names are different, but the pattern is identical. A bold promise up front, a weak reality slapped down behind it. The real sting comes not from the poorly cooked beef, but from what the betrayal represents. Outback, Texas Roadhouse, Longhorn, these are chains built on trust. They ask for premium steakhouse prices, but dish out steak unworthy of the word. When the core product no longer matches the message, it feels like more than disappointment. It feels like deception. But scattered across this field of burned and broken promises, a couple of chains have managed to stand strong. Against the odds, they've kept value intact, kept flavor dependable, and kept customers walking out satisfied instead of angry. And that's where we're going next. Most big-name steakhouses keep running on memory and noise, not on meat worth ordering. Logos, peanut buckets, and loud themes hide the fact that quality slipped long ago. But in the middle of that decline, Texas de Brazil delivers tableside skewers cooked evenly every time. And Logan's offers simple, steady plates without gimmicks. Now I want to hear from you. Drop a comment with the worst steakhouse meal you've ever had and the hidden gems you found. Because just like on a battlefield, talk means little. In dining, the mission is clear. Results on the plate, not promises.